Very good day, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to the program. This is Financial Markets, and you're watching Smart 24 TV, where we drive your business. My name is Anthony Sebale, your host, and I'm glad that you're joining us this morning, exactly, of course, the 13th of October. It is a very wonderful day, of course, for us here as Financial Markets. We always want to break down the day, of course, before how the markets were able to perform, and looking into the future as well and what we should expect. The markets, I have to say, we have some activity going on in the Kenyan market there. The Ugandan market is still kind of sluggish. It has still a sluggish movement at the moment that we are witnessing so far. But at least when you look at the general global markets, the US stock market is kind of regaining strength, of course, on and off for several hours. And the S&P 500, the Dow Jones, and the Nasdaq composite trying to remain afloat. But still, we're still, of course, watching the space to understand how we can be able to maneuver these tough economic times and make worthy investments for our future. Now, if you're joining us for the first time, if you can consider visiting our social media to give us some feedback. If you want to learn more, if you want to get some of your questions answered, you can do so through our social media on Twitter at Smart24TV, or you can do it on my personal handle at Anthony Sebale. And you can also leave us a comment in the comment section on our YouTube live stream at Smart24TV Live. As well, you can always get to us through our social media platforms like Facebook and give us a comment if you have any concerns of the day's trades. What do you think about the current performance of the different companies that are listed? What do you think about the different participants in the financial markets here in East Africa? Do you think we are still on track? And what do you think is the way forward? And of course, the show is brought to you proudly by OTX East Africa, the #1 private stock exchange in East Africa. They are, of course, bringing you an initiative called Zabu, where they have partnered with MTN Momo to allow you access treasury bonds across East Africa at the tip of your fingers. All you need to do is dial *292# and follow the prompts. You can either buy or sell different financial instruments that are in East Africa. That is Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. Now, looking at yesterday's trades, the Uganda Stock Exchange, starting with the Uganda Stock Exchange, the figures are still quite in the red, as you can see here. And the all-share index declined after the day's trading on yesterday's trades. The index went down by close to 0.56 points, and this was a 0.05% decline on the stock exchange in terms of the all-share index. Remember, the all-share index is the tracker of the aggregate performance of the entire stock. So if you don't want to have a look at MTN, at Stanbic Bank, at every company and how it performed, you always want to look at the all-share index. And according to yesterday's data, we had a decline. And this is explained by the fact that the number of participants contracted to just 3 listed companies that were able to participate in the trading on this particular day of trading. And the day closed with 5 gainers and close to about 3 losers. Now, Jubilee Holdings Limited led the gainers at a 0.96% price appreciation, closing the day with a price of 7,673.82 Ugandan shillings per share. It was followed by East African Breweries from the bottom, who also appreciated close to 0.13%, and MTN Uganda appreciated close to about 0.21%. And by the way, MTN was the only MTN was the only domestic stock, I think, that was able to come out as a gainer there on the stock market in Uganda, and then followed by Equity Bank Limited, who gained close to 0.13% on their stock price valuation there on the Uganda Stock Exchange. On the losing side, however, we had Nation Media Group, who came out last with an end-of-day price depreciation of close to 2.29% at 512.212 Ugandan shillings per share, and then followed by KCB, who lost about 1.01% of the price there of their stock on the Uganda Stock Exchange. We also had Centum Investments, who lost about 0.32%. And as well as several other companies that actually came out as losers by smaller margins there. But basically, looking at the stock market appearance here, it depicts exactly what's going on in our economy at the moment. And these are the moments where you, of course, investors, radical investors will tell you buy more, and get to stock more stock as you, of course, prepare for better times. But I would advise us to, at least you be very vigilant in the way of spending. Of course, inflation is still quite high. Different companies are also not still doing very well economically or in terms of the revenue, because people basically are struggling to survive and get to make it through the day. And so still this is portrayed in our markets here at the Uganda Stock Exchange. You're seeing basically a very meager participation and small movements, I have to say, than we would expect, at least for the fourth quarter of the year 2022. So we are hoping, of course, the markets will be better, but we, regardless, have to move on into the world of investment and make those future investments. And of course, many speculators have said that the stock markets will return to the bigger prices. They will return to better performance sooner or later. So all it takes is some patience, a little bit of patience to work together, that we grow our capital market, and also make sure that we keep our hands on deck, keep the knowledge, keep of course, getting to make money, but also saving that money and putting it aside for these investments that could also come through as handy later on in your edge. Now, as I've already mentioned, the All-Share Index paired close to 0.56 points, and that was a 0.05% slight decline there, but closing at 1,218.77 points. The All-Share Index has so far shed off in 1 week about 1.94%, and in 4 weeks it has shed off about 4.38% of its value, whereas in the overall year-to-date loss, they have shed off close to 14% of the value of the All-Share Index there. The local company index, the LCI, has also become an issue, but yesterday, unfortunately, because of MTN, the index went up by close to 0.12% and closed the day with about 272.42 points. That is the local company index there. On the other hand, we also have a 1 week loss still on the local company index of about 0.02% and a 4 week gain of about 7%. Still, the local company index is showing some bit of improvement because of the better performance of the local stocks that are listed on the Uganda Stock Exchange. Now, let's look at in particular the details of Jubilee Holdings, who came out as a top gainer yesterday. Jubilee Holdings Kenya is a national insurance company that has been in operation since the 1937, and that is within the East African region in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. The company's operation in Uganda was revived in 1992 by the formation of the Jubilee Insurance Company of Uganda, together with Aga Khan Fund for Development, for Economic Development and International Finance Corporation, as well as the Development Finance Company of Uganda. Now, the company has been listed on the exchange since 2006. Well, close to, let's see, about 14 years, 15 years of experience on the stock exchange. And looking at their value on the stock exchange, currently they have a market value of close to 460 billion, which is close to 2.19% of the entire stock exchange at the Uganda Stock Exchange. Now, this accounts for 2.19% of the entire stock exchange, meaning they have a fair share, and currently they are the 8th most valuable. So out of the 18 companies, they're coming in the 8th position in terms of value that they hold on the stock market, meaning it's quite a very big company on the stock exchange. However, they haven't registered any trades on the Uganda Stock Exchange, especially recently, but they have over 59.9 million shares that are outstanding or floated on the Uganda Stock Exchange. And currently, their market capitalization based on this current share price of 7,000 is 460 billion Ugandan shillings. It being an insurance company, of course, they have competitors like NIC, the National Insurance Corporation. They have competitors like Centum Investments. And comparing their performance with their competitors, the NIC company is doing a little bit better in terms of year to date, after having accrued about 13.7% on their value. That is NIC, National Insurance Corporation, and currently having the lowest price or the most affordable price of over 5.8 Ugandan shillings on the Uganda Stock Exchange. Now, that's it for Jubilee Holdings. And like I've always said here on the show, most of the cross-listed companies do not have much activity here. It's evidenced, of course, because of the daily trades we are seeing, mainly coming on the domestic exchange, domestic car markets rather, because people would prefer buying stock probably in companies they are well versed with or that have presence in the country. But leaving that aside, also the level of interest people show in cross listings is really still at the minimum here in Uganda, and we want to advocate for more investors within the cross listings, because also these contribute a lot towards the stock exchange. For example, the most valuable company, Equity Bank, is a cross-listed company from Nairobi, having a market capitalization of close to 5.2 trillion Ugandan shillings. That's 5.2 trillion shares that Ugandan shillings worth of shares that are listed on the Uganda Stock Exchange. So there must be something if you open your eyes and actually get to see how important some of these stocks are. Though, like I've mentioned, the activity is not yet that good, and these price movements basically are due to the foreign exchange rates, as well as some kind of market activity on the domestic exchange of these companies. In particular now, talking about the Nairobi Stock Exchange. Jubilee Holdings was followed by East African Breweries, and the East African Breweries much has gained by 0.31%, but similar story to Jubilee. There was no particular movement in terms of volume or turnover, as the company did not actually trade on this particular day of trading. However, let's look at MTN Uganda. MTN also gained by 0.21% and closed the day with a price of close to 184.28 Ugandan shillings. And when you look at the current traded volumes on MTN, they had about 53,198 shares that were traded, and this was after a gross turnover of 9.8 million Ugandan shillings. that was transacted on the stock exchange yesterday. And currently they have 22.4 billion shares and a market capitalization of 4.13 trillion. And they are ranked the second most valuable on the Uganda Stock Exchange out of the 18 companies. And of course, the most newly listed company, of course, hasn't even made a year yet after listing last year in December on the 6th. And MTN stock has quite been something on the stock market, though generally speaking, they've still had a decline in terms of 1 week. They have lost about 0.03% of their stock value and have only accrued about 1.81% on their 4 weeks performance, and about 2.95% has been lost in the last 3 months or so. Now, after yesterday's trades, we have already seen that they gained rather about 0.2% and closed at 183.89 Ugandan shillings. However, when you look at their beginning price for this year, they began the year with a price of close to 194.99 Ugandan shillings and have since then lost about 5.49% of their price valuation, ranking them the fifth best company in terms of year-to-date performance after that loss. And still speaking about the loss, MTN came on the stock market with a price of 200 shillings on their primary market, that is during their initial public offer or the IPO, and currently we haven't seen the company go back to that much price there on the stock exchange. And so there's still a little bit of dissatisfaction from the primary investors who invested in MTN, looking back at the MTN stock at 200 shillings. But the company, in terms of trades, within the last 3 months is the fourth most traded on stock. From July 13th to the 12th of October, the company has traded about 12.1 million shares that are valued at 2.31 billion, which is one of the biggest turnovers that we have ever seen for any initial public offer or a company that has just gotten to the exchange within the last 3 months. So the activity is still quite good. I would commend MTN for that and recommend it as well for people looking at investing in the long term, with a long-term perspective, with a long-term vision. Definitely MTN Uganda is one stock you want to look out for the next few centuries. Of course, it's the only telecommunications company still listed on the stock exchange, and there are rumors. Of course, we might have to confirm these rumors by the end of this year or even next year, that we could have another telecommunications, a big telecommunications company joining the stock exchange as well. And we would highly welcome that as well, to create some kind of competition on the stock market in terms of sectors. Remember, sectors are also very important, as of course some investors invest aiming at a specific sector and seeing what value they want to add to that sector or what they expect from that particular sector. And MTN, as I've said, is a very good trading stock at the moment, and they have had trade on the 12th, on the 11th, at least for this month, on the 10th, basically daily trades for every weekday. At least they have had some good volume and a few declines here and there sometimes, of course, because of the tough economic times we are going through. But MTN is still one stock I would highly recommend for my dear viewers, and definitely for the long-term and seasonal investors that are looking at gaining capital over a much longer period of time. That is it from MTN Uganda. The rest of the stocks here basically are Kenyan stocks that we had move on the stock market. However, we also had Stanbic Bank, who recorded the highest volume of close to 232,000 600 traded shares that were transacted on the stock exchange, followed by MTN Uganda at 53,198 shares, and Wumeme, who recorded just 93 shares. My friend, you don't have to have big money to invest in the stock market. You can start small. You can see just yesterday, Wumeme just traded 93 shares. If you want to get the value of that, multiply 93 by the closing price of Wumeme, which is 200 shillings. So closing, that's close to about 18,000 shillings, and someone was able to acquire 90 shares from a company like Wumeme. We don't know the value of these shares, that what value it could be in the next 10 years, in the next 5 years, in the next 6 months. We have no idea. And so you don't need a lot of money to invest. You need a willing spirit, you need courage to be able to make the first move, and the rest will be actually history if you make the first move. So open that SCD account, go to Google right now if you're holding your phone at www.use.org.ug and open that account. To open the account, you go to Easy Portal, and at Easy Portal you will find a portal where you're going to actually put your picture as well as your personal identification details, including your NIN number, as well as a picture of your national identification card. And these will definitely get you into the access of the Uganda Stock Exchange registry. And when the account is open, which will take about less than 24 hours, you can contact any of the 5 stock brokers which we have across the market: SBG, Crested Capital, Dyer & Blair, UAP, and Cheaper Technologies. They will be able to help you buy the stock and even give you free financial advice on how you can manage your stock and other securities that you decide to trade in. Basically, that's how the market looked like. But of course, we have other companies that also had some movement that I would like to mention that could also have movement today. Uganda Clays in particular is trading at 15.0, and then when you look at Stanbic Bank, is currently trading at 21 shillings. New Vision is at 155 shillings, and then you have Nation Media Group at 512.12 shillings, and the National Insurance Corporation, NIC, at 5.8 shillings, and MTN at 184, Stanbic Kenya Commercial Bank at 1,241, and Kenya Airways at 121.45, as well as JHL and Cipla Quality Chemical Industries at 65, and several others. So you can always have a variety of stocks to choose from, and remember, diversification is the key when it comes to investing in the stock market. We're taking a quick breather, and we return with the Nairobi markets, and of course stay tuned at Smart 24 TV. We'll be right back. Stay with us.